how long have you been working in the foster system?
I've been doing this for, I guess this is my 3rd year now. And I also, prior to that, I work in a program called Lifeworks, where I'm a mentor. And I work with mostly people who are transgender or gender expansive. So that was kind of the inspiration for the other boy. And when I was working in that program, a lot of the kids that we get are actually homeless or in the foster care system because they were kicked out of their homes after coming out to their families. So I kind of, became aware of that population and what they were dealing with through that. Like, I learned a lot more about foster care then. And so that kind of morphed into me working on this second book that was a social issues book.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of that here in the Midwest as well. That's one of those things that never to get too involved in religion or politics, but that's one of those things that when we talk about religion, that should make you suspect right there. Something with the power to turn parents against their children that should be approached with a bit of caution.
Yeah. So, no, and I think it's really challenging. I mean, it's a hard problem because, I will say that everyone I know who works in the system, from the lawyers to the social workers to most of the foster parents that I've met, are all wonderful and really devoted to helping these kids. But it's just the volume of it is completely overwhelming, and we just don't have enough foster homes. Like, there aren't enough great foster parents out there. And so, when we're trying to place a kid, I mean, it can be like 100 phone calls to find a spot.
So what can people watching or listening do to help?
There's a lot of things you can do to help, whether it's, if you have the time, I highly recommend becoming a CASA or a GAL. They are, nationwide. I'm sure there's an organization in your area if you're in the United States. And basically you go through a training program and then you get assigned, like I said, to one kid. And, that's what makes it so special is I'm always been a believer that if you can change one life, it'll have a ripple effect, and for me, I know volunteering, having that like one-on-one connection really makes me feel like I'm having more of an impact. Like, I can do more than I could if I was just showing up at a soup kitchen once a month. Not that that's not great too, but, it really doesn't take that much time. And I think that's the thing is, like, if you can't foster kids yourself, volunteer as a CASA. If you don't have the time for that, consider donating one of those donations because, we're always pressed for cash. And we even have special funds for stuff like what I was saying before. Like, you can donate to a special fund that will help pay for a kid to get horseback riding lessons or piano lessons or something that makes such a huge difference in their lives, that gives them something to hang on to. In my experience, the kids who really transform are the ones who find that thing that's special to them, And,
what's an example they might find?
So, actually last year there was a kid who his CASA got him into a boxing program at a local gym. They donated sessions for him. And that discipline that he learned there, he'd been on the verge of dropping out of school. He'd been having all sorts of behavioral problems. And having this outlet to channel his frustration and his energy in a positive way completely turned him around. And he ended up graduating from high school and going to community college and continuing in this boxing program and also volunteering to help out with the boxing classes for younger kids. So, that's just, it's a small example, but that's the thing. It doesn't take much, or if you have an organization where you run a camp or have horseback riding classes or boxing, like whatever you do, if there's a way to be like, hey, you know what, maybe I'll see if there's, I'll reach out to the local CASA organization and see if they'd be interested in having me donate some sessions of this, not cash, but just actual time. Like, that would be huge.
That's something you can pretty much do on any budget. And so I wanted to ask you, you wrote in your afterword, I want to get the wording right, that one of the purposes of writing this book was you wanted to lay bare the inadequacies of the foster care system. So what kind of inadequacies are we talking about? What needs to be made public?
Again, I think that, as I said, one of the big issues is we just don't have enough foster families. And at least I know here in Los Angeles, we've lost half the foster families over the last 10 years. And partly that's just because there's so much bureaucracy to go through to become a foster parent. You know, you've really got DCFSF heavily involved in your lives to an extent that not everyone's comfortable with. They slashed the financial incentives that people were getting paid. So it became something that was less and less appealing to people. You know, and I think, you know, I don't want to get political, but when we talk about kids getting separated from their parents at the border, a lot of those kids end up in our foster care system here. So we've gotten an average of, you know, I think it's an additional 3,000 or 4,000 kids over the last year. And that's, you know, a huge burden on a system that was already straining under its own weight. So the kid that I'm working with now, it took me 6 months just to get her an eye exam. You know, she needed glasses. It took 6 months. And you know, it feels like every request that we make, like we go in for a hearing, the judge issues a bunch of orders, like, let's get her this and this and this, and it all sounds great. And then you realize like the wait list for all of those things is months long. Like by the time the appointment comes, you've almost completely forgotten that you were going to do it. So, you know, I think that's tough. Like it's just volume. I mean, in Los Angeles, a social worker handles twice as many cases as a New York caseworker. And I think in New York, you know, in all of New York State, they have 20,000 foster kids. We have 30,000 just in LA County.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So are some of the things that are being talked about here in the Echo Park Castaways? At one point, Nevaeh recalls a home where you've got an old couple that, I think they're medium-age couple, but they've got sewing machines in the basement, and they put the kids down there, and they've got them working on, what was it, for an online business? Some kind of
dog beds.
Dog beds, yes. Is that based on a real? Was there a real ancillary event to that?
You know, that's not based on an actual story. There have been stories like that nationally. It's not uncommon that the kids get used as kind of free labor. I think with middle grade fiction, I was kind of towing the line between, you know, there are some much more horrific stories, but that wouldn't be appropriate to include. And I wanted to show just how awful some of these placements can be without going over that line. And I actually have a good friend who grew up in foster care, whose Nevaeh is largely based on. You know, she's an African-American woman who spent, you know, 11 years in, I think, 13 homes. And, you know, we've talked a lot about her experiences. So, you know, the truth is that a lot of that stuff happens and it never gets reported.
Well, and I don't want to give listeners or viewers, esteemed audience, the wrong impression. This is a very fun middle grade book. It's age appropriate. It's less than 200 pages. You'll fly right through it. And I think that the only profanity I caught was an ASS. Oh my God!
Yes.
I apologize, gentle listeners, if somebody's fainted or clutched their pearls. Oh my Lord, he spelled a bad word. So it's very much age appropriate. There should be no hesitation in recommending this for any young readers in your life. But it is a very serious subject, and you do a nice job of illustrating the severity of the situation without ever crossing middle grade